Hey everybody, Charles here. This week's episode is titled, Who's Your Daddy? Please join us in welcoming Mark Littman, a licensed therapist in New Jersey. Now, Mark has the same last name as my co-host Dan. And if you think that's a crazy coincidence, half of Dan's DNA is Mark's, because Mark is Dan's father. This interview was the first time I got to speak with Mark, and I really enjoyed the conversation and got a lot of valuable information out of it, and I hope you do too. To find out about Mark's services, either locally in New Jersey or via telehealth, please check out the link to his website in our episode notes. This previous week, Dan and I shared the details of the podcast with friends and family on social media for the first time, so I'd like to welcome all of our new listeners. It's great to have you. If Dan or I make any references on the podcast that you think might be about you, even though we don't mention you by name, we are totally talking about you, and thanks for the free content. Enjoy. Welcome to the Mindfully Masculine podcast with Charles and Dan, where we take a conscious, holistic, and direct approach to relationships, mental health, and self-improvement. For additional content, visit our website at mindfullymasculine.com. And to interact with us, our guests, and your fellow listeners, join the Mindfully Masculine group on Facebook.
Good morning, Charles, or good afternoon. I keep making that mistake. This is
good afternoon. Yeah, we're not used to these afternoon schedules. But our brains have already shut down.
Right. But these are the most special ones so far because these are when we're doing our interviews, right?
Exactly. So why don't you introduce our special guest, Dan?
So we don't have any special guests, but we do have a guest. This is I'd like to introduce Mark Littman. He's a professional.
He's got the same last name as you. That's crazy.
I know, right? So better known as my dad, or maybe I should say I'm better known as his son. And he's been working as a therapist for longer than I've been alive, right? So Dad, you probably, more than 50 years. So, about close to it, right?
Well, let's see. Probably I graduated. I got my bachelor's degree in '69, and my first job,
nice,
in 1970 or so. So do the math.
Yeah, that's
52.
Yep. Yeah. And I am not 52 yet. So knock on wood.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to have him on the podcast.
Me too.
And let's get into it.
Dan, in your opinion, how many subscribers is the podcast going to require for you to be the most famous Littman in your family?
Well, considering he's been teaching and working for so long, we're probably going to need a
couple thousand,
probably at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. Get on that.
All right. So let's see. We're recording this on a Thursday afternoon. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how your week's going, Dan?
Week has been very busy for me.
Same.
In a good way. A lot of the career that's actually putting food on the table at this point was moving a little bit slower than I had liked, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, things really started to wake up. We really thought this was going to happen at the beginning of January, and I mean, it's gone crazy here at the beginning of February. So
nice.
I guess everybody was in the gym, working on a New Year's resolution instead of doing work. And now everybody gave up their New Year's resolutions. Like, okay, let's go back to reality.
Let's go sit behind a desk again.
Exactly. Let's get this project done finally. So, a lot of that, and a little bit of some ballroom dancing classes and stuff. Picking that up, and I think we're talking about doing a dance this weekend on Saturday for
Valentine's Day dance.
Yeah, just me and you.
Yeah, very very romantic while we sit against the wall with our backs facing everyone, trying to not get asked to dance by ladies who are so much better than us. We'll see how that goes. I had a great lesson this last week with my dance coach, and what did you do? What did you focus on? We did rumba the whole time, and that's definitely my favorite Latin dance. It seems to be the one that's coming the easiest to me. So beginning middle of March, I'm going to start taking a Rumba group class that I told you after my lesson, my coach was like, if we focus on Rumba between now and then, you're going to be so good that you're not going to want to take the beginner class. You're going to want to go straight to the intermediate class. And I looked her dead in the eye. And I was like, do you even know who I am? Do you think I'm going to pass up the opportunity to be the best person in the beginner class so that I could be the worst person in the intermediate class? There's no way.
Did you fire her immediately? I would have.
No, she saw the error of her ways.
All right. Thankfully. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good for her.
The idea that I would take the intermediate class where I would have to stretch myself and work harder and probably get better much faster. The idea that I would do that instead of just being the best person at one thing for a couple weeks, no way.
Unbelievable that she'd even go there.
I know. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So we got to hang out on Tuesday night and see Dr. Jordan Peterson live and in person in Jacksonville.
That was fantastic. He was even better in person than
he was.
He
was way better in person than he was for 4.5 hours on his most recent Joe Rogan Experience visit. That took a lot out of me, man. That was a long visit. And when he started talking about his screenplay and the music he's been writing, my eyes started to glaze over. I'm glad that didn't come up on the night of the show.
I mean, I really liked the way he approached his talk. It was really like a television show where they will go down one storyline for a while and then kind of leave it a little suspenseful and then switch storylines.
Yeah.
And he did that with his talk, and he did that like 2 or 3 times. And then at the end, he was able to kind of unite them all together and bring it together in a really concrete, powerful way. And it was, a big takeaway for me was really, we need to get back to community involvement in terms of people being able to unite on different levels than what we're kind of experiencing now, to kind of reduce the tension with the political divide and the other things that we're kind of getting caught up with. And he said there's a lot of degradation, I guess is the best way to put it, in terms of all of the civic groups that we are a part of, in terms of the amount of participation in it. There's a lot less young people in it. So, between things like Masons or Rotary, a lot of that is a lot of older people are involved and not a lot of younger people are involved. But even you talked about this, bowling leagues these days, bowling alleys, they used to make a lot of their money from bowling leagues. And now it's just individuals bowling on their own instead of people coming together and doing something they love and connecting over that and being able to, really communicate and bond with each other. And that was interesting. I never really thought about it until I listened to him talk about it. And I do realize how important that is. And I definitely want to, get involved within the community a little bit more too.
The bowling example I offered is from a book that I added to our books we want to read list in our book club. And if you would like to check that out, it's free for anybody to join. You can see what books either we're currently reading or we have read or we're going to read in the future. You just go to bookclubs.com and just search for Mindfully Masculine, and you can join our book club. But there's a book by Robert Putnam called Bowling Alone: The Collapse and Revival of American Community. And I'm looking forward to reading it and getting into a little bit more detail about, how it is that we have let go of all these social connections that we used to have, and what people, particularly, it looks like the millennials seem to have an interest in reviving some of those things. So hopefully they'll be successful at that.
Yeah.
Because I like hanging out with millennials. I even like dating them.
And how's that going for you?
Mixed results.
You like dating them? Do they like dating you?
For a while. For a while. I tell people that I'm one of those guys that people appreciate in small doses.
Yeah.
And there's a couple gals out there who have overdosed.
So, you've been signing up for quite a bit of community type of events, physically related, such as 5K and a triathlon.
Recently? I did 3 5Ks in the last couple of weeks. And yesterday I signed up for my first triathlon, which it's a novice triathlon. So the distances are very short. But yeah, I need to start practicing for that. So today I took a bunch of things that I had recently ordered off Amazon and took them back to Kohl's and returned them to get a refund because I need to go bicycle shopping. If I'm going to do a triathlon, I should probably own a bike. So I'm going to have to, in the near future, go get fitted and try to go to my local bike shop and get some good advice and maybe walk out of there with a bike attached to the back of my car. We'll see.
Yeah, let me know once you get it. We've got some nice trails right here. The Painted Trail, the Seminole White Wakiva Trail.
Oh, I love that trail. I've only walked it. I love it.
Painted Trail, and it's fantastic on a bike. It's got some tree coverage, and it's beautiful. A lot of cool celebrities on those fences.
Yeah, the art is great. It's a lot of fun.
So
yeah, that's April 30th is the date of my my mini triathlon. So I need to get a bike and I need to learn to swim. So it's going to be a busy couple months.
So that's actually an interesting transition because our special guest on the podcast today has done a couple of runs in his life, and as well as a triathlon.
Wow!
And also taught me to bowl. So it all kind of comes together perfectly right together. Now. Yeah, it comes together really well. So that being said, this is our special guest, Mark Littman, my dad, and welcome, Dad.
Well, it's great to be here. It's this is different for me. This is a whole thing. I had no idea. I listened to about 3 podcasts in my life before this, so this is interesting. It's enjoyable. I'm looking forward to whatever you got to throw my way here.
Well, you don't need to lie, Dad. Enjoyable?
No, I need the lies. Please keep the lies coming.
No, it's so funny that you were talking about the triathlon because I did do I did do one triathlon and I didn't know whether you would even remember because
I remember you were there. Oh, absolutely, I remember you getting out of the water and getting on the bike. I was right there when you did that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's when your mom and I were going through our divorce, I guess.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't remember that. I didn't remember it was that time. Yeah, I just blocked that out. I just focused on the triathlon.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go to therapy for that.
We were separated at that point. And I remember you and Carrie, your mom, being there though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was a mini triathlon. It was I think it was a 3/4 mile swim in a lake.
Okay.
I think it was about maybe a 15-mile bike ride around the lake.
And then a 5K at the end.
And then no, it was more than a 5K. I think it was 5 miles.
Oh, okay.
2 times around the lake or something. I don't remember. But that was it. I got a couple of claims to fame. That's one of them.
Right. And then and the marathons. What years were those?
I've done a few. The last one was in 2004. I did the New York City Marathon in 2004. I've done that twice before.
Wow.
And then I've done 2 marathons that don't exist anymore. One was the Long Island Marathon, and one was the New Jersey Marathon. But the L4 was a good year because that was the year I ran New York, and then it was also the year that Bev, my partner, and I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro together.
Oh, nice! I'm a big fan of hiking.
Huh?
I said I'm a big fan of hiking. Part of the reason I'm doing the 5Ks and the triathlon is I want to get in shape to do Mount Whitney later in the summer if I'm selected.
Yeah, that's a toughie.
I know.
Yeah. Well, Dan and I did some mountain climbing up in
Mount Washington.
Yep.
Now, is that just a walking hike or is that a technical climb? Did you have to break out the?
It's not. It depends on what route you take. But
okay.
We always took the non-technical routes.
But
gotcha.
But it always ended up where it was a little technical at the top. There was we had to do some scrambling where you were on your hands and knees for a little while.
Yeah.
Navigating up the rocks.
That's
it wasn't
true.
a straight walking trail. So we didn't need like climbing, ropes or hooks or anything like that. But
right.
It was not a walk in the park by any means.
No, there were areas where you were scrambling, where you were doing some stuff. Yeah. But there are also technical climbs that you can't, where you do need, gear and ropes and things like that. But that's not us.
Yeah, I was thinking about going out to Colorado here in the next couple of months to try to do one of the easy 14ers and see how it goes. But they've got snow on the ground until like June or July, and so if I do decide to do it, I'm going to have spikes and snowshoes and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or if I'm going to wait till later in the summer and try to do it then.
Yeah, well, good luck on that. Yeah,
Thank you.
I tried to I did a climb to Mount Everest base camp. Never quite made it to the base camp though. Unfortunately, I got feeling not well. I was almost there, and it was a real interesting climb.
Yeah. Now Dan referenced that a couple episodes ago, and he says he poisoned you.
He what?
He said Dan thinks he poisoned you.
He poisoned me?
Yes.
Yeah, remember all that beef jerky that I was experimenting with and I gave you and you brought on the trip? And I
didn't know that. I don't remember that. But
yeah, good. Yeah, it was designed to wipe your memory too. So yeah, I guess
I guess
so
it worked
now
properly.
As a mental health professional, what's the message there? Was Dan like love me more than the mountain daddy? Was that what he was going for?
Yeah, now that you mention it, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He's for sure.
Yeah.
So all right. Well,
okay.
What else did I? What else? I can't remember other things. Oh, you got me to jump out of an airplane once. So
I've never done that.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I think it was more you and my brother-in-law that got me to jump out of the airplane again.
But you had already done it. Yeah.
The first time I almost hit a 737, and and so the second time it was my sister's, a wedding, and right beforehand, and so someone had the brilliant idea. I don't know if it was you, Dad, or Dan. My brother-in-law is also named Dan. Decided, okay, well, the three of us, let's go up on a plane and jump out of it. And I did it, for them really. And my sister was freaking out because she doesn't like to fly to begin with. And then the three most important men in her life were all hopping on the same plane and then jumping out of it.
Yeah.
That experience did also not go so well for me. We jumped out and it was just, I spun up over and over and over and over again.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because the first time I jumped, I wasn't actually strapped on to anybody, and I had taken lessons for a whole day to learn how to jump out of an airplane by myself. And so, doing that, not my fault. Almost hit a 737, and this time I was actually strapped to somebody because we didn't have to take any lessons first.
Right.
So we needed to be strapped to an instructor. We jumped out of the plane, and for whatever reason, maybe you miscalculated the weight or whatever, but I mean, we just somersaulted the entire way down until we had to pull the chute. And that was, I was a little bit nauseous after that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm guessing, did you enjoy the jump, Dad?
Yeah, no, it was great. I loved it. I really did. I mean, there was nothing scary about it. The scariest part is before you get out of the plane.
Yeah,
just sort of waiting,
it's all the stuff your brain's going through, right?
You sit on the edge with the door open, and your guy is in back of you, strapped to you, and there's at that point there's no choice. You got to go, and it's scary. But then once you're out, it was incredible,
Yeah.
And of course,
it's fun.
It's a good feeling once the parachute opens. So
yeah. It's always a good feeling for sure. But yeah, the parachute is my favorite part. That once you hit that parachute out and you're looking at the sky and the world below you and just moving so gracefully, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never done it, never considered it seriously. I always did kind of think though that if I did do it, I would want to take the full ground school so that I could go solo instead of doing tandem.
Yeah, tandem. Yeah, I mean, I thought about that, but I never did it. So
it takes a lot more time and a lot more money. I think it's like 3 or 4 times the price to do it that way now. Last time I checked.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, sounds like that's quite a life of adventure. Dan, you seem a little boring in comparison, actually.
Hey, I still got some time left.
That's true.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
All right, so I guess let's start jumping in a little bit to some of our questions, and the first one I like to ask, Mark, is before we get into your story and your background, these days, what does a typical day at work look like for you? How many people do you see? What kind of therapy do you do? Just anything you want to tell us about that.
Yeah. In terms of what my day these days, I'm at a point where I should have been retired long ago, but therapists tend to go on longer than a lot of other people as long as we have our brains
Gotcha.
in one piece. My practice is, you can't see it, but to my left, might be to your right, I'm not sure. If you look out, there is my office is about 100 feet up the driveway.
Oh, okay.
And that actually used to be where I lived at one time. And then when my partner Bev and I moved in together, we built where I'm living now. We added a house, and that house became my office.
Okay.
So I have no commute. So that's a really great thing.
That's nice.
And I average probably 12 to 15 people a week. There are weeks where it's a little less. There's weeks where I can do anything more than 15 gets to be a real, it's a lot of work for me. I work for myself. I take insurance. So I can, there's kind of an endless stream of clients if I want them.
Right.
Most of my clients actually are out of pocket. They've heard about me from former clients or whatever. The kind of therapy I do, it's kind of, I want to say eclectic. It's because it's not geared. I don't follow. I mean, do I know cognitive behavioral? Do I know analytic? Do I know Gestalt? Do I know? Yes, I do. But I gear my therapy to the individual.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I listened to the podcast with your friend Rob.
Yeah.
Rob, and one of the questions you had asked him was, "What books do you recommend?"
Uh-huh.
And he named a couple, and one of the books he recommended was by a therapist, or actually a psychiatrist, named Irvin Yalom.
Okay.
Who's out of California. And he recommended a book, and it's really funny because if you were going to ask me that question, I would not have recommended the same book, but I would have recommended another book by him.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying. Yeah, my mind is going, of course, obviously. The Gift of Therapy.
Okay.
Gift of Therapy, and what it is it's a book for people who are just starting out in therapy. And I read it long after I was already a therapist. So, but it was so valuable to me in terms of how what it did was it kind of confirmed, hey, I'm not doing too badly here. Because he talks about things like the here and now, in therapy, meaning, what's going on right at that moment with you and your clients, and using that, because what if I'm feeling, for example, if the client is pissing me off for some reason, he's just being annoying or whatever, the way I react to that is, if he's doing it to me and I'm his therapist, that may very well be an issue in his life.
Yes.
And so what's going on with us is really important, because that reflects what may very well be going on in his life, and maybe part of the reason that he's in therapy.
Yeah, that's really what being in that room with a therapist is about, right? Co-creating that experience and feeling those feelings. Yeah,
and the relationship. The other thing, that the reason I'm sort of hemming and hawing on treatments, the various treatments, is that it really almost doesn't matter. It's the relationship between the therapist and the client or patient, whatever term you want to use.
Yeah,
that matters. So that's why I don't like to be locked into any particular type of treatment. So
now, usually, do do people who seek out therapy and who believe they need therapy, is that relationship that they form with you as a therapist, is that repairing some relationship that was lacking? I mean, ideally, in an ideal world, would we all get all that from our primary caregivers and not need therapists?
Are you talking about transference?
I don't know.
I don't know whether you discussed that with Rob or not. Or what is it? Rob, right?
Rob, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know but transference means that and this is not true in all cases, but very often clients will see the therapist as a significant person in their life, not as a therapist, but as a mother figure or a father figure, or someone, and will act out in ways in ways that are similar to how they did or couldn't do when they were kids.
Interesting.
And the therapist. So therapists are always aware of the transference issues. When a client is getting angry for no real reason,
right?
And you're wondering, why is he getting angry about that? So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but
no, totally.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about working from home? So yeah. I've always wondered about therapists that see patients in a home office or nearby their home.
Yeah.
You ever have patients that have particular mental health issues that you ever have to worry about the fact that they're at your house?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's a question that I'm in a number of therapist forums online, and that's one of the questions. One of them is actually therapists working from home.
Okay.
And that's a question. That's are you worried about somebody coming to your house and getting upset with you, and
right.
Your house is right there. I mean, my office is on one side. I've got a chain link fence, and my dogs are on the other side. And we live here. And if somebody wanted to, I guess, yeah, they could just come here. But do I worry about it? No. I mean, yes, could it happen? Yeah, absolutely. And I hope I'm not jinxing myself. I've been here. We've been doing this out of my home here for getting close to 20 years.
Oh, okay.
And there's never been an incident, anything even close to that. So do I worry about it? Yes. A lot of therapists don't, who work in regular offices, they don't even, they hide where they live, and they don't want any of their clients to know. I'm pretty open in terms of self-disclosure within reason with my clients. So they come here, they park there's a parking area up there. They look down, they'll see my dogs are all barking at them when they come, because if they're outside, they're going to be barking, and they know I have dogs. They know I love animals. They see where I live and so forth. So I'm pretty open, and I also will answer within reason. I'll answer a lot of personal questions that some therapists won't do.
Okay.
Depends, obviously, but so yeah, the answer to your question is no. I don't really. I think about it. I'm aware of it. Something is always possible, but I don't let it affect me at all, one way or the other.
Okay, understood. Dan, you want to jump us back to the prepared stuff so I stop rambling and pulling your dad in all different directions?
This is great. I like the rambling. No, this is fantastic. So, Dad, in your case, what are people primarily going to you for help with?
Yeah. I know this is mindfully masculine, so we're focused. I think you want to focus mostly on adult males. I mean, I can talk about whatever, but is that where you want to focus, or are you talking about it just in general?
Well, we can, why don't we talk about it in general, and then we can talk about adult males.
Okay. My practice is about 50% adolescents, mostly male adolescents, but a few girls as well. And the rest are adult, anywhere from 30 to 75 or so. What do they come to me for? That's I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking about like the clients that I have now and some of the ones that I had, and almost, I'd say 85%, the major issue that comes out is in relationships. And they may come in for other reasons, but after a couple of sessions, what I notice is that there's some issue in the relationship. A lot of times, 50% will come in with the reason that they're having problem with their wife, with their girlfriend, their, whatever it may be. And then probably about 30 or 40% come in with some other problem, maybe a work-related problem or some problem with their kids or something like that. But after a little while, very often the relationship becomes almost primary.
Interesting.
And resolving problems in the relationship becomes the major goal or major focus of therapy. Yeah.
With those relationships, I mean, is it how is that usually communicated to you? Is it they're frustrated with how their partner's behaving, or is it they're saying I'm frustrated with the way I'm behaving? Is it?
Yeah. How self-aware are the people when they get to you versus after they talk to you?
That really varies. I would say once, I had a client a little while ago. I don't see him anymore. We're pretty much done, but his original reason for coming in was a lack of a relationship with his father, who he hadn't spoken to in many, many, many years. And his father had left the home and so forth. And we were working on that and possibly his connecting with that person. As we were talking about that, he was also married. We were talking about it. He brought up issues with his wife that they were having, and problems they were having. And it turned, and little by little, we moved what appeared, he didn't seem to want to work on the relationship with his father, at least not at that moment, because we had tried various approaches. But we started talking about what was happening with his wife. And that got to a point where that was the major focus from week to week. And that happens more than once. I mean, where someone will come in with another type of problem, and the next thing we're talking about a relationship issue.
Gotcha.
But I also see, half of my practices are with adolescents, and a lot of those, I was thinking about that as well, that when I see them, many of them come to me as referrals from the local high school, as situations where they need crisis type situations at the high school, where they've told somebody, made some suicidal gestures, or made some statements, and the kids can't come back to school unless they see a therapist. And they're so and what happens is I'll see them, they, clear them to go back to school. And very often they'll start therapy with me at that point. And what's interesting is that the reasons for the statements they've made to their friends, what happens is they'll do something online. A friend will tell a guidance counselor or whatever, and that's how I find out what happens. And the reason that they make these statements is because of something that happens with some girl that they're trying to date, or their girlfriend, or they get rejected, or they can't get a date and they're depressed, and that kind of thing.
Wow.
A lot of that comes out of that. There often are other issues as well, sometimes family problems, but I thought about, even with adolescents, that seems to be high on the priority in terms of reasons for seeking out counseling or therapy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What I'm glad we went there. So what is the typical when it comes to, I guess, child development, what age or what stage are we typically in when we learn how to deal with rejection or what age should we be when we learn to develop those skills of being able to handle a rejection and be okay with it?
Boy, you should tell Dan that he's been rejected all his life.
I'm working on him.
Well, I feel rejected right now. So
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's a good question because, obviously there is, and I'm not trying to get out of it, but there really is no specific. I mean, in terms of feelings of rejection, could start very early in life, from parents, from mothers,
Right.
demanding too much, and that sort of thing. And fathers as well, obviously.
Right.
And feeling like they never quite can do it right. That there's always, they've always got to work on being right, doing it the right way. I know that the book that you guys have been talking about sort of alludes to some of that stuff.
Yeah. So then at what point, I mean, at a very young age, it's very difficult to ask a child to be able to be okay with that, right? To be okay being rejected. So that based on your experience, at what point, and it's probably some point I would think is maybe a teenager or something, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but at what point do most people have the mental capacity and or maturity to be able to put those types of rejections in proper perspective so that it doesn't cripple them?
There are adolescents who can do that very well, who can do it at 12, 13, 14. I see kids all the time who really do put things in perspective. They will, without, I'll see them and they've got issues and, mom is too demanding. I'm just making this up, sort of. But they love their mom and they understand that mom is really wants nothing but their best, but for them, but they're feeling like they can't be themselves. And they will say, can you see my mom as well with me? We have to work on stuff.
Wow.
My mom doesn't, when I go to bed at night, my mom is constantly on my case because she always wants to make sure I've done my homework, and she won't let me do anything else. And even though he's a good student, he's a good kid, he's, and he's feeling like he gets acceptance only if he does what his mother wants him to do.
But and just so we're clear, this is information coming directly from the child, from the kid. This is not something that you've just deduced based on the conversation.
And this kid was 14 or 15 when I first started seeing him, and very mature. Where other mature in the sense of understanding that he had an issue with his mom. Thankfully, his mom did come in with him, and that we were able to work through a lot of this stuff. And I've seen him for 2 or 3 years. He's going to college now pretty soon, and he's doing really well. Go ahead.
So I mean, I was just going to say, is there? I mean, I know we're just kind of, this is no scientific study, but based on your experience, are there any certain characteristics or traits that you see in these kids that have that level of self-awareness that other kids may not?
Boy, that's a good question. I have to say no.
Or situations they might have, been exposed to, or yeah. I mean, is there any way to? I'm just curious.
It's so tough. Parenting and is such an important aspect of this. So that in almost all cases when I see adolescents, I'll see the parents as well. Not always all the time, but I will bring the parents in, and the kids that I see, or the adolescents that I see, they don't always they don't have the insight that they need to have. And you sometimes you see it. A parent will come in and they will almost tell the kid what to say. The kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you see the kid reacting, or the kid is going to just rebel against everything the parent says. You know.
Yeah.
So in terms of at what age or what point, there really isn't. I mean, it's so individual.
Yeah.
It really is. And
I guess it's an unreasonable question on my part. I'm looking for a magic pill, right? Like, what's the perfect situation for someone to be able to,
Yeah, you took us down a real dead end there, Dan. We'll edit that out.
You're welcome. So Charles, you've got a better question for my dad. Go ahead.
Let's see. Let me go back to my list. This one was interesting when we asked Rob, so I'll ask you as well. Is there anything about being a therapist that you found unexpected when you started actually doing the work that you wish someone would have sort of warned you about or given you a heads up about before you started seeing patients?
Yeah, these questions are really good.
Thanks. We just Googled them and stole them from other people who've been doing this longer than us.
Yeah, okay.
A couple of them we did. Some of them we made up. Some of them we co-opted.
Yeah. I think the one thing I really thought about this, and the one thing that I would say probably is the most, I don't know how you phrased it, the most that I wish I had known.
Yeah,
is what an awesome responsibility it is to be a therapist. That it's not something that you think. I mean, I was doing therapy long before I was licensed. I was working for other people, and so forth. That's a long story, which I could go into if you want. But when I was working for others, I mean, I would see clients, I would do families, but it wasn't until I really got into my own practice on my own, and I would start seeing people week after week after week, month after month, sometimes year after year, sometimes, until I realized what an awesome responsibility that is. That you literally have people's lives in your hand. I don't mean to be overly dramatic about it.
No, I agree.
But people count on you to know what you're doing, to give them not so much even advice, but to give them the kind of that they want to know that they're being heard, and how awesome that responsibility is. It's not something that when I first started out being a therapist that I thought about very much. I mean, I like talking to people. I enjoyed listening. So that was fine. But it wasn't really until, maybe 15 or 20 years ago that I realized what a responsibility that it is. And I mean, that's the one thing more than anything, I think that I don't know, say that I wish I had known, because I think I still would have wanted to do what I did, but it was something I didn't realize, how close some people come, that, they come, especially kids, sometimes they come and they're like one step away from suicide,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a joke. I mean, I'm thankful it's never happened. I don't want to trick myself here, but, that I've never had anyone, try to kill themselves or succeed. But I think about it all the time, especially
I'm sure.
with people who are, going through tremendous amount of stress.
So that brings me to one of our other questions we had talked about, was along those lines. What are some of the, most unhelpful coping mechanisms that you're seeing with your patients when it comes to dealing with anxiety and stress?
Yeah, well, you could probably figure that one out yourself. Alcohol, drugs, porn, just isolating with doing nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, are you seeing probably the most with when it comes to, because you said that you're seeing a lot of patients ultimately, or most of them are relationship based. Are
Right.
you seeing then, do you think porn would be one of the top, if not the top coping mechanisms that you're seeing
Yeah. I mean, I think,
above like alcohol and drugs and everything?
well, the thing is, even though my first experience working with patients was in the methadone maintenance program many years ago, so I'm very familiar with drugs, but I don't treat people who have got active drug problems. In other words, if somebody's got a serious drinking problem, it's going to interfere with what we do, and they need to deal with that first.
Got it.
But based on what I've read, you can't really get to the bottom of their mental health issues until they're sober, right?
No, yeah, and they've got to become sober, straight, whatever. And so I will send them either to someone who focuses on that. If they need rehab, obviously, that will be the way to go. Because the drugs, the alcohol are just interfering with dealing with anything. They're self-medicating, and which is common. And people self-medicate. What I see with a lot of couples is one of the couples, usually the male, who's really, I hate to use the term addicted to porn. I don't really like to use the word addicted to anything, but dependent, and use it to stay away, to avoid relationships. And guys that don't have relationships will they have a relationship with porn, and that's the way they, instead of going out and getting on a dating site or doing something, they'll just stay home and do that.
So when somebody first comes to you and you identify that is an issue for them, what are the first things that you communicate with him or have him work on?
Are you talking specifically about porn now? Or
so if you've identified somebody has a high dependency on porn and you think it's unhealthy and it's affecting his life, what are some things that you generally recommend they start with?
If you tell someone, hey, you got to cut back on your porn, you know what's going to happen, don't you?
Yeah, right. They're going to use it more. Sure.
They're going to do it. They're going to do it even more.
Right. Yes. Okay. So that's one of the things you don't say.
That's what you don't do.
They'll do it more, but they'll tell you about it less.
Right. Now you find out, what's behind it. What, they're coming to see me because they're unhappy. They don't have, their marriage broke up for whatever the reason. They can't keep a girlfriend, something like that. So we're going to look at what's going on. What's the cause of that? The porn is not causing that. The porn is a symptom of that, and so what's going on? So it would depend. I mean, I may, again, it depends. But if someone is doing I would never say stop or even cut back, because what will happen is, again, they'll either want to do it more or it creates other problems. But look towards, what can they do to work on, what happened in the marriage, what happened with their girlfriends, what's going on, and what we can do to work on that. And the porn people will stop on their own if they don't need to do it. They don't,
right.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yep.
So, I see people who come and have a lot of problems with weed, for example. And why do they have problems with weed? Because they're depressed and they're not on medication. And so, the weed helps them feel good, and they can smoke, and they'll self-medicate with that. And so, you don't say you got to cut back on your smoking, because that's going to just it's not going to work.
Right.
So you work on what's going on, what's the depression or whatever it is that they're again, they're self-medicating against or from. Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no, totally. And that jives with a lot of stuff I've heard and read about, those experiments that they'll do with lab rats where they get them addicted to cocaine or
yeah.
heroin.
Oh yeah.
But then they put them in an environment where they have lots of fun things to do, wheels and tunnels and stuff like that. And then they lose interest in the drugs because they have an enriched
amazing.
life.
Well, that's all they want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So Dad,
Okay.
something you also used to work quite a bit with was hypnotherapy, and
Yes.
I know Charles was interested in some hypnotherapy. I didn't want to let you go before talking about
Well,
that, and I don't know if you remember trying to hypnotize me one time as a kid to help me stop sucking my finger.
Did I really do
and
that?
Yeah. I was probably about 10, 11 years old, and it really. It didn't work. At least I didn't think at the time, but I don't remember sucking my finger too much longer after that, ironically. So maybe there was something there. But
I don't know. I've seen you eat chicken wings, and I think you regress sometimes.
only if they're honey barbecue.
Yeah. My story with hypnosis is interesting, and it started. I used to smoke about 2 packs of cigarettes a day until I was in my into my 30s, and early to mid 30s, and I had seen I was working with a psychiatrist who had just taken a course in hypnosis, and I took the same course. But before I took the course, I saw the psychiatrist who did hypnosis with me, and I stopped smoking almost immediately.
Wow.
And this is interesting because it relates to Dan, because it was at a time when Dan was where Dan's mom was pregnant with Dan. So that's how long ago we're looking, 47 years ago, something like that?
You mean
Somewhere
37 years ago?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
You don't get to be younger than me.
And I remember stopping. It was and the reason that it's important was because one of the factors in the hypnosis was if you feel the desire to smoke, you could teaching me or anyone self-hypnosis is refocus onto something that you really want. Because if you say to yourself, don't smoke, it's like before, don't watch porn, same thing.
Yeah.
If you tell somebody don't smoke, and what I would do when I had the urge to smoke was I would think about something that I really wanted. And at that point, it was to see I don't know that we knew that it was going to be a son at that point, but to see my kid grow up and
start a podcast. Yeah. And congratulations.
Right. Yeah. And embarrass his father at a podcast.
You're just hoping for a kid with a normal sized head. So it's time to give up cigarettes.
Yeah. And I went from 2 packs a day to nothing. And I haven't smoked cigarettes since that time. I smoked a little weed. I won't argue about that, but I haven't smoked cigarettes as a result of that. In terms of at that point, then I went and I worked. I trained with the same person who trained the psychiatrist that did my hypnosis, and I started using it in my practice. And I wasn't at that time. You don't need a license to do hypnosis. And I would see people for things like smoking and weight control, primarily that sort of thing, habit issues. But then after I became licensed and was on my own, I incorporated hypnosis into my practice. A lot of people have a misimpression of it. Charles, have you ever did she hypnotize you yet?
No, I've never, I don't think she does it. My therapist is talking to me about finding someone to do it with, but because no, nobody's ever hypnotized me.
So a lot of people, when they come to me for the first time, I don't do a lot of hypnosis as a unique treatment anymore, because I do it can be a part of the therapy that I do. But most people have a misconception of what happens when they're hypnotized. And that comes very often from watching a stage show or seeing a movie or that sort of thing. And the key is to understand about hypnosis is it's not magic. It's not truth serum. It's a way of it's called focused concentration. I tell people what's it feel like when you daydream? What's it feel like when you're driving your car somewhere and someplace you've done it over and over again? All of a sudden you arrive there, but you can't remember how you got there.
Yeah.
Well, you were in a trance. What happens is, that part of your brain that is always aware is it's there, it's in the background, and the other part of your brain is focused on the daydream, on something you're listening to, whatever it is, and so you lose awareness of what's going of where you were or what you're doing, and of course, your brain will always bring you back if you make a wrong turn or you do something like that, and you arrive where you are, but you have no conscious memory of it. And when someone hypnotizes you, what they're doing is they're tapping in to that brain, right brain, left brain stuff. And so they're tapping into that right brain, that part that just, you can, it's a part where it's creative, it's fantasy, it has no judgment. The left brain is always there watching to make sure that you're okay. So when you're hypnotized, you're not asleep, you're not under anyone's control, and but you have access to thoughts, feelings, emotions, things that you may not ordinarily have when you're going about your day, and because you've tuned out all that other stuff. And so there's a value in hypnosis for some things, but it's not truth serum. It's not going to, I think, if you want to be, people sometimes want to be regressed. And regression is a part of therapy where you can regress someone to an earlier point in their life, but they're not people don't start suddenly. If I regress you back to something that happened at 10 years old, you're not going to remember everything that happened to you at that time. You may remember some detail. If you were abused by someone, but you can't remember it exactly, is it possible that you could be regressed back to that time and have some memory of something that you don't have any conscious memory of? Yeah, but in many cases, nothing really happens. So yes, you can regress someone to. Years ago, I used to work with the local police department, and they would bring people to me who witnessed a crime but couldn't remember parts of it, and they would. I would do the hypnosis with them. They would video it, and to see if they could remember. I would regress them, and I remember if they could remember some things that happened.
Interesting.
A lot of times it worked. It was helpful. Many times it was not. You have to be a good subject to be a good to be able to be regressed. So I got into regression here, but in terms of now with hypnosis, I use it as a form of relaxation. Someone comes to me with anxiety issues. I will do hypnosis with them to help them to relax. I'll record it; they can listen to it, and so forth.
So then, when you say you record it for them, so is that something that you recommend? So if you tell them, hey, if you're starting to feel some anxiety, re-listen to the session. Is that the technique?
When I first started doing it, I would do it on cassette tapes. And then I went to DV, to CDs.
Okay.
And now I just say, get your phone out and open up your recording app.
Yeah.
And I just have people, and I just record it, and they can listen to it as just reinforcement. So they get, and after a while, they don't really need to do that anymore. Once they get the idea of how to do it, I'll use it if I'm treating someone for OCD, for example. The way you treat OCD, one of the ways you treat it certainly is to get people to learn how to tolerate the anxiety that makes them want to do something over and over and over again. And so the way you tolerate it is you learn how to relax while imagining not doing something that they really want to do. And I use the hypnotic technique. It's just a way of relaxing to help them to reduce the amount of anxiety related to whatever it is that that they're not doing, that they, and so forth. So I use it for a number of different purposes these days. But I don't, in terms of smoking and so forth, I don't do that much of it anymore, because most people that want to stop smoking will they switch to vapes, and I once in a while I'll get someone. Usually it's somebody that I've seen in the past that I've helped to stop. So I don't know what you wanted to use it for, Charles, but
I think so in my last session, I had a session with my therapist yesterday, and she had me send her some pictures of me as a child, and we looked at them together. I'm only doing telehealth with her. She hasn't opened her office back up. So we were doing over the phone and using the app, we were doing our session, and she would have me look at the pictures of me as a child and try to connect and identify with how I was feeling, when I was that age going through that. And it was pretty difficult for me to really feel a meaningful connection to it. Yeah. And so I think she kind of saw that coming, which is one of the reasons she suggested that maybe some regression hypnotherapy might be beneficial to me.
Yeah, it may be. First of all, it depends on how hypnotizable you are.
Yeah.
Not everyone is, there. It is kind of a natural, normal curve. You have 5 or 10% of the population that basically cannot be hypnotized. That you can't not,
in your experience, do narcissistic genius know-it-alls fit in that category of people who can't be hypnotized? Because I might be in trouble.
I mean, the key is how much are you willing to give up? You really don't give up control, but if you feel like when you're hypnotized you're going to be giving up control, then you're probably not going to be a good subject. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, consciously to answer the question, I feel pretty willing to try anything that she recommends. I trust her 100%. So if she recommends it, I'm willing to give it everything I can.
Yeah. I mean, what I do with my clients when they first come in is I test them for their level of hypnotizability before I even do anything with them. And so again, as I was starting to say, I get 5 or 10% that I can't even treat them. I can't do anything. If all they want is to be hypnotized and they're not hypnotizable, and you have 70, 80% that are, good subjects. Some are very good subjects. And then you have maybe another 10% on the other side that are extremely good subjects. I mean, they're walking around in a trance all day. Anyway, I don't really even do it. They walk in the door and they're already in a trance.
Now, are those the kind of people that stage performers are trying to find?
Yes, exactly. Okay, that's why if you've seen the stage show, they ask for a lot of people to come up there, and they'll do a few little things to see who are their best subjects. Right. And the ones who are shitty subjects, they'll send back down, to the audience. And they'll do most of their funny stuff with the really good subjects.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's interesting. When I was in a grade school, or may have been junior high, maybe either grade school or junior high, we had my dad come in, and he did those tests in front of our class for everybody. Yeah. And I got a lot of street cred from that, Dad. So I just want to, I had people coming up at my 25th high school reunion. I had people coming up to me telling me how much they enjoyed that, and that's what they remembered about me, was you coming into the class teaching everybody about whether and I think it was the balloon experiment, a balloon and brick kind of thing, where and I mean, everybody loved it. And I didn't realize how much street cred I actually got until that 25th reunion. A couple people had mentioned it to me, so thanks for that, by the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I studied with a guy by the name of so you can look him up, Herbert Spiegel, who is a very famous psychiatrist and is well known for the work he's done in hypnosis. And he had a theory of the higher we can roll our eyes, usually the more hypnotizable we tend to be. And it's an interesting kind of thing. It's not, but it was a quick read. You could find out just by looking. One of the first things I do is I say to people, look up and close your eyelids down over your eyes. And usually if all you see is sclera, if all you see is white, they're usually pretty good subjects. And then I go ahead and I'll do the test. I don't do the balloon test. I do a different type of test. Yeah. And usually there's a good correlation between how high we roll our eyes up into our heads and how hypnotizable we are. You want to see if you can do it? Here, it looks like this.
All right, let's give it a shot. Let me
look up towards the top of your head and then slowly close your eyelids down while you're looking up. Oh man, look at that. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, you are a freaking zombie, Charles.
You are a zombie. No, you should be a really good, seriously, you should be a really good subject. I mean,
excellent.
It was all sclera, all white. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's
another stupid human trick I can add to my resume.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, but I would certainly, if your therapist thinks that you should, it might be worth it. You should be a good subject. I don't, it does, even people with high eye rolls, maybe, there's other factors that go into the way, your life. So I've had people with high eye rolls who can't be hypnotized. I've had people who can't roll their eyes who are very good subjects, but it's a general kind of rule. But it's worth it because if your therapist thinks that it will help you unblock some memories or whatever, or what you need, then it's worth it. With a good therapist, it might be worth trying. Just don't assume that. The other factor is, don't assume that everything you say when you're hypnotized is the truth, because it's not.
Sure.
A lot of it is what you think or what you wish and so forth. So.
Oh, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's why hypnosis is not allowed in court, because there's, you have no way of knowing.
Yeah. I'm anxious to, I generally find the more regularly I am having sessions with my therapist and doing the things that she recommends based on what I've told her, I'm looking to get out of life, the better things go. So if she thinks it's a good idea, I'm willing to do it.
Yeah. And you guys meditate, right?
Oh yeah.
And so it's meditation. It's just a different word for it. That's all.
Gotcha.
And for people that I can't hypnotize, I often recommend, because meditation is something that you do yourself.
Right.
No one's doing it to you.
Right.
But the feeling is very similar to someone who's in a pretty deep trance, brought on by a hypnotist who's told them what to do. But it's the same. It's basically you're getting to the same place.
Gotcha.
So if you're good at meditating, you should be a pretty good hypnotic subject.
I mean, I do it often. I'm not as good at it as I'd like to be. I get distracted really easily, but I get a lot of value out of it. So I'm working on building the habit. Dan, what's the name of that device you have that you wear on your? Because that definitely makes me feel meditative in a way that just my normal practice with my app does not do.
Yeah, it's called BrainTap.
BrainTap.
And yeah, it's a combination of headphones and these little eyeglasses that come down that have LED lights that kind of blink very quickly according to binaural beats that go through the headset. And there's a number of different programs that either are with music or just the beats, or with somebody talking to you through the headphones. And yeah, in 10 minutes, the way that thing works with your brain and your eyes, you feel really like you're in a very relaxed, meditative, hypnotic state very quickly. It's very effective. I like it. I liked it a lot. It was it was really different.
Has your therapist used EMDR with you or recommended that yet?
No, she hasn't suggested that. I've heard of EMDR with where did I first hear about it? I think I was listening to Dr. Drew Pinsky's podcast, and he talked about EMDR being used for people to get over trauma, and he was recommending it.
So let's clear up, what is EMDR?
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Okay.
And it's you can look it up, but it's been around for 25 years, maybe longer, and it's basically geared towards movement of your eyes back and forth, and what you're doing, it almost sounded, that's why it made me think of it. The eye movement helps reduce trauma or the thoughts that of some traumatic event.
Interesting.
And can reduce, can be very, very helpful. And you go online today and you could get a number of EMDR. What you were describing almost sounded like it. It used to be years ago. I don't know if therapists still do it, where you would sit there with a therapist and he would just have you think about the most traumatic thing, the thing that's causing the trauma, and follow his fingers with your eyes at the same time that you're thinking about it. And then the level of, if you're looking at, say, if your level of discomfort was 95, and you keep thinking about it and keep following his eyes, his fingers, the level of anxiety just keeps reducing more and more and more.
Wow.
And don't ask me the theory about it, but you can read all you want.
Well, what's interesting is I just listened to another podcast about the
you're cheating on me.
Yeah. I had no idea how tied the eyes are and the muscles in the eyes are to our brain, and what basically there's scientific evidence that shows that if you are looking up at a monitor, for example, when you're trying to do work, that will actually increase your level of alertness. And it is a direct tie to, I believe, like a dopamine release, versus looking down at something actually will make you a little bit more tired. And there's physiological reactions to the way the direction that our eyes are placed. So if you're looking down at your screen, like a laptop or your phone for a while, you'll tend to be more sleepy. Whereas if you need to be awake and alert, you want the monitor to be at high level or higher. So you're looking up a little bit. And I thought that, and there's lots of scientific studies that back that up. Sure. And so it makes sense to me that this EMDR actually, by moving your eyes from side to side, right, helps reduce stress. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I had it done with me many years ago. My story. I had a pretty traumatic event happen before I met Bev, and went to see a therapist at that time. And at that time, EMDR was very new. I had never heard of it. And he did it with me, maybe 3 sessions.
Wow.
And it was unbelievable. It just reduced the anxiety. It reduced flashbacks that I was having from the trauma that I'd experienced. And I don't do it myself. People that I feel use it, I refer them to others who are specialized in that. But it's a very powerful tool. Very powerful tool.
All right. Well, I'm convinced. I'm going to try hypnosis first. And if that doesn't work, I'll do EMDR. And if that doesn't work, straight to ketamine.
Well, you believe that's the growing thing. If you're listen, it sounds like you have a great relationship with your therapist. And
I do. We're actually going to interview her on Saturday morning for the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll be really interesting.
Probably I'm excited.
Much more than Dan's father, I'm sure.
Well, I don't know about that, but I am going to tell her she's got carte blanche. I'll sign whatever I need to. She can say whatever she wants to about me.
Well, that's fine. Yeah. You need to. She's going to have to ask you that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Ahead of time, get you to sign off on that. It's called ROI, release of information.
Okay.
So I don't want to end things early, Charles, unless you had a couple more questions. I think I was leaning towards wrapping this up.
I think we're good. We covered a lot of ground, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah,
I did too. So I believe everybody, if you'd like to engage with my dad for some therapy, you can find him on his website at marklitman.com.
That's right.
And he will selectively screen you out. So
yeah, we'll put a link to everything, any social media, anything you want to link to, we'll put it in the show notes so people can find you.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Whatever you do. I still see new clients, and if anybody's interested, be happy to.
Oh, quick question. Are you able to do hypnotherapy over like telehealth?
You can, I don't.
Okay, gotcha.
But I not because I don't want to, because I don't know that I've even the opportunity to do it. I do a lot of telehealth. I do more face-to-face these days.
Okay.
I still do some, I'd say. Yeah, in fact, right after this at 7:00 this evening, I've got a telehealth session. And if someone needed it, maybe if I had done it with them before and they were familiar with what I did, because this is, there's good eye contact.
Yeah.
I can, so I would think that's perfectly valid.
If I'm looking for somebody though, and I have the option to do either, would you recommend for the first time I try to do it in person?
My feeling is that that whoever you see should test you first, like I do.
Okay.
Not like I do necessarily, but give you some test to see how good a subject you are.
Gotcha.
It's not going to, if you can't be hypnotized, there are therapists or hypnotists who will say everybody can be hypnotized. That's just nonsense.
Gotcha.
And then the other thing is, if you're a really good subject, if I didn't know you well, I'd be uncomfortable just doing it this way
Remotely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what not that you're not going to be able to come out of it. You're going to be able to come out of it no matter what.
Right.
But if you're really, if you started to get upset, I just remember real quick. I remember seeing one client that the police had brought in, and he had witnessed a car accident in which somebody was killed.
Ooh.
But the police were trying to identify the vehicle.
Okay.
And the license plate in the vehicle. And I regressed him. He was a great subject. I regressed him back, and he remembered. It had only happened just days or a couple of weeks before, whatever. And he remembered everything. And he became so upset. I mean, he started crying and
Sure.
getting very, that I brought him out of it, right immediately. So I guess theoretically you could do that same thing.
Right, but you'd be more comfortable doing it in person.
But I'd be uncomfortable with it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I would say if you want to do it, great, but probably the first time at least see the person and find out whether or not they're you're what kind of a subject you are. Most people are pretty good subjects. I mean,
okay, cool.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dad, this was great. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure. I mean, anytime.
Oh, my cat is making an appearance now. He's
okay.
he's coming to participate in the show.
Fantastic.
Right.
Hi, everybody, buddy.
Hey, sweetie, what's his name?
His name is Harris. I named him after Sam Harris, the neuroscientist.
Okay.
Look at the tail. That's fantastic.
Look at that tail. All right.
He's showing off.
All right. Well, I could bring my dogs in here, but I won't.
All right.
There you
Next
go.
time we'll do that, Dad. We'll make sure that the dogs are with you next time. So.
All right. Well, I hope this is a little bit helpful.
It was great. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And Dan probably does too.
I absolutely do. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
Of course.
Oh yeah. The one question you would ask is how come he's never been in therapy, right?
I was going to say, yeah. Do you consider that a failure as a therapist or a failure as a father?
I think if you ever want to get in therapy, that would be fine. That would be wonderful. But do I think you need?
Is it necessary? Right. Yeah, that's the question. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's something the same with his sister as well. So.
Right. That's fair.
I think once we incorporate the company, Dan, we're going to have to put it in the corporate charter that everybody on the board has to be in therapy.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that
because I definitely need to be in therapy, and if you're not in it, I get to quit.
Oh boy. All right. On that note, we're gonna call it a day. Everybody, thanks for listening. And
okay.
Charles, Dad, have a good one. Take care.
All right. See you.
All right.
Thanks again. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for spending time with us on the Mindfully Masculine podcast. If you liked the episode, or you think it would be useful for someone else, please leave us a review and join the Mindfully Masculine group on Facebook. Remember, fellas, don't act masculine. Be masculine.